Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And I'm back very soon because, as we know, Imran Khan's just made he's addressed the nation 2 hours ago. Before that, he had addressed the nation again. So today, he's been addressing the nation multiple times in a day. I think that there are a few things that comes to mind when we listen to him, because he has repeatedly asserted some of the points over and over again, and it's important because we ourselves have repeatedly asserted these points over and over again as well, because these are things that you cannot understand, that why is it that these things are happening, and how come the world is silent. First of all, as I've kept on saying, I think our nation is not one of dignity. Any dignified nation, any nation with a sense of shame, any nation with a sense of conscience, they would be out in the streets, they would be literally pulling everybody apart, they would be killing these people if necessary, even. It would have been a French Revolution. But because Pakistanis are so complacent, they work up for what, 2 to 3 years, and then suddenly they're all half dead again. And this is an undeclared martial law. This is something I've said from day one, that this is an undeclared martial law. And if if people still think that Imran Khan can perform miracles, then they're sadly mistaken, because one man alone cannot perform miracles, and especially for such an undeserving nation, and an undeserving nation that is not ready to get off their ass to do something themselves. This is not how a dignified nation behaves, where you have sections of people protesting while the rest are just sitting hoping for a miracle. That's not how it works. The people need to wake up, and they need to go out in the streets the same way they did when he was ousted, the same way they did when Imran Khan was about to get elected, and when everybody stood by him in each time. The leaderless protest, that nationwide protest after he was ousted, that is something that it was a pleasant surprise, as I've said again and again, because this is something you do not expect from such a dead nation. The fact that the nation celebrated, their awakening, and then again flopped back into their graves, this is very predictable as where I'm concerned, because I have never seen Pakistanis rise up for their rights. I've never seen them rise up for what is right. I've never seen them work hard on something. They have always looked to another person to do their jobs for them. And that is why Pakistan is the way it is today. That is why it is where it is today. And that is why it was so easy for our own people to commit treason against our own public. That is why it was so easy for our media to commit treason by selling itself out, by being bitches of the riches. And now they're suffering the consequences. And I'm sorry, but I really do believe that the media deserves whatever it's going through now. They took the side of the illegal government. They took money, they sold themselves out, they sold their journalists out, they sold their anchors out, just for money. So yeah, now if they're being harassed by the illegal government, and if they are being censored, and now if their journalists are being killed or harassed or kidnapped, well, you know what, you brought this upon you. On the other hand, why is it that the world is silent? That our own government is literally, you can literally see that it is following Israel's orders, as I've said previously as well, that, at the end of the day, above America is Israel. And so when you're becoming slaves of America, you're essentially becoming slaves of Israel. And because America wants that these countries like ours, they should all come under Israel, and they should accept Israel as a nation. Now, because of that, not only do they want to dismantle our nuclear powers so that we should be completely stripped of our sovereignty and our power to defend ourselves, we already have the establishment and the army committing treason against state. That in itself is the most dangerous tipping point ever in any country, when its own army and its own establishment openly turns against their own state, just in order to please a foreign country. that in itself means that the institutions, the establishment and the army, and all the relevant government institutions, they need to be destroyed, they need to be dismantled, and they need to be rebuilt from scratch. This is also something I've been saying way before this whole thing came about, way before all hell broke loose. If you listen to my old episodes, when I talked about the system being broken and the system being rotten, and about creating foundations upon rotten about creating foundations, because you cannot rebuild any system upon a rotting foundation. This is, as we can see, we are right now bearing the consequences of this that I talked about at least 2 to 3 years ago. Now, on the one hand, you have this, and then, as I said, coming back to because I digressed, coming back to the main problem here is, why is the world silent at the fact that the that not just women but children are being kidnapped, and children are not just being kidnapped. You can literally see Israel's stamp all over this pattern, where children are being kidnapped from their homes because you cannot find their parents who are members of PTI, and then they're minors. You need to understand, these kids, they're minors, they're teenagers, and they are not just being kidnapped, they are being kidnapped and tortured. I would call it torture, because when you kidnap a kid and then you cover their face and their head with a bag or with a cloth or with a sack or anything, then that is initially the first stage of torture. This is something that you do to terrorists. This is something that you do when you want to torture somebody in order to coerce that person to commit to confess to a crime that they haven't committed or anything. In basically, long story short, this is pure illegal. Okay, and yet the United Nations is silent. America obviously is silent because America is behind it, but they don't know what to do now. Britain is silent very awkwardly because, again, they're behind it. They have been part of the whole conspiracy. And yet, I have seen nobody from even the international forums, that their voices are being heard. I know that they are actually protesting. I know that Amnesty International and the Human Rights Watch and all of those organizations are actually hands down protesting and calling for sanctions against these individuals and these institutions that are doing this to their state. But very predictably, they are not being heard. You will not see any Western media actually highlight this issue. You will just listen to them rambling on about political crisis and this and that. But have you ever heard about this in the mainstream Western media or international media or global media? No, you haven't. Have you heard it in Pakistan's mainstream media? No, you haven't. So suddenly, the whole world's media has decided to come under a union in which they have this agreement that they are not going to talk about what's going on in Palestine, what's going on in Kashmir, and now what's going on in Pakistan. And the weird difference is, I would have thought it would be in their interest to talk about what's going on in Pakistan, because in Palestine, okay, it's Israel doing it. In Kashmir, it's India doing it. Now, Israel and India are both, they're both financiers, and India is a huge marketplace and it's working with Israel. So obviously, anybody who's working with Israel automatically comes under the safety net. So the mainstream media will not touch on them, on the topics related to them. But Pakistan, I would have thought that they would, just literally fall onto this, and they would talk about it nonstop. But no, the mainstream media is silent throughout the world about these actual issues that are going on, about women being kidnapped. As you know, women were also being raped, if not raped, then just assaulted, stripped naked. All these things were going on. And then at the same time, I've mentioned this before, that together with women, children were also being taken. And this is one of the issues that Imran Khan addressed in his speech 2 hours ago. And that is how a 13-year-old boy was kidnapped just because his father, who was a PTI member, was not at home. They had raided his house 6 times, and then they decided to kidnap not just his son, not just his 30-year-old son, but also his 18-year-old nephew. And they covered their heads and faces with a bag. I mean, imagine doing that to a kid. They've done that to younger kids. Let me remind you, they've done that to younger kids. They have harassed kids, and then the police keep on saying, oh, we're helpless, we're helpless, we're following orders. Again, you do realize that as Muslims you bear the responsibility of accountability. That means that no excuse whatsoever, and it's according to Islamic law. If you ever followed it, if you ever even had the guts to be real Muslims, then you would know that in Islam, according to Islamic law, you are going to be part of the perpetrators. You're going to be their accomplices, not just in the worldly Islamic law, but also when you die and go back to wherever it is that we came from. We are going to be held accountable. That means that there is no such excuse as I'm getting orders. The army, the police, anybody who, it is very clearly written in black and white in Islamic law that anybody who follows any orders that that is wrong, and that you know that it's wrong, then you will be automatically labeled as the accomplice. You will be partners in crime. Okay, so yeah, police, you're a separate institution. Again, as I said, just declare that we're under martial law, and then everything will be already explained. A second thing that which other people are also now screaming on about. This is something that obviously I've said, and that is that the Supreme Court is vastly, hugely, largely responsible for whatever Pakistan is going through today. So the Chief Justice now suddenly is talking all about how he will never allow martial law to come in. Hello, are you asleep? Martial law has already come in. We are already under martial law. Number one. Number two, had you not opened the Supreme Court at 12 a.m. that night and created that whole situation that put us in this condition that we are today, had you just not opened your Supreme Court at 12 a.m. that night and created this chaos that you are hugely responsible for, we wouldn't be here today. And now, why aren't you opening the court? Now, that's my question here, which I think nobody seems to have asked. Why aren't you opening the court now at 12 a.m.? That's what I want to know. Why are you not opening the Supreme Court at 12 a.m. right now? Because it's useless. Because nobody gives a fudge about you. Nobody gives two hoots about you. That's why. They're just going to smack you around and throw you. You've got just a few months left to your name. Thank you very much. You just fudged us for the next fudging decade. And now you actually have the guts to talk about democracy and system and constitution. You're the one that started this whole shit that we're in. And I would love to see you have the guts to open the Supreme Court at 12 a.m. now. Just try it. You were so comfortable doing it because that was Imran Khan's government. Imran Khan's government was the only government that gave you your power. And you misused that power, and you've created this whole shit for us. And we're the ones suffering. And again, I would say the people of Pakistan, they kind of deserve it, because it's been like fudging 50 years. I mean, when are you going to wake up and get off your lazy bums and actually do something instead of hoping for miracles? God does not help those people who just sit on their asses, okay? God helps those who help themselves. You need to start helping yourselves. It's as simple as that. Instead of cursing people on social media, instead of cursing the illegal government on social media, instead of cursing the judges on social media, why don't you just go out? Get out there, go out into the streets and just shut everybody down, shut the country down. I've said this like a million times. I mean, the government is already shutting the country down anyways. Your businesses are completely gone. Okay, there are no businesses, there are no there are no jobs. Okay, their employment rate is at a minus, not even at a zero. Inflation is going sky high thanks to this government stealing money again and again. Now, the government doesn't have money to pour into the country, but the government has money to bribe its officials by giving them new cars. They're giving police people new cars. They're giving people in the army new cars. They're giving ministers new cars, and they're giving them money in their accounts. Where's all that money coming from? And why the heck are we paying for all of that? That's what I want to know. Okay, so these are my questions here. And who dares answer them? Nobody. Nobody has dared answer these questions. I want to know, why isn't the Supreme Court opening at 12 a.m. now? I want to know, why is it that the world is silent, that children are being kidnapped and they are being tortured? Why is it that the police think that it's okay for them to show that they're helpless because they're following orders from the US imported government? Why is it that the US is not openly declaring that it is trying to conquer Pakistan and make it part of its colony, which is exactly what it's doing? Why is it that the world is so complacent and so quiet? Today it's happening to us, tomorrow it will happen to you, and it will. It will happen to you. You just wait and watch. It's going to happen to every single one of you. It's going to happen to every single country. It's already happening in India. The world is silent. It's been happening in Palestine. The world is silent. It's been happening in Kashmir, occupied Kashmir in India. The world is silent. Um, Hawaii was taken over by America in friendly occupation. The world was silent. It's happening now in Pakistan. The world is silent. It's happened in Libya. The world was silent. It's happened in Egypt. The world was silent. But how long? I mean, how many more countries are going to go through all of this? And again, when we all know behind every single global mafia and warmongering, you have America, and behind America, you have Israel. Israel, a country that actually does not even exist. I mean, now here's that joke of the century thing going on, that Israel actually does not even exist officially, constitutionally, legally, in any way that it's right. It's not a country that exists. They have just taken over an existing country called Palestine, and they're trying to force the world to call Palestine Israel. They have occupied half of Palestine, and they're still encroaching upon the rest of the land. And again, this was because the British gave that land to the Jews, the same Jews that the British and the Germans and the other countries of Europe, as well as America, were responsible for beating up and kicking down and throwing out of Europe. The same Jews that America did not even allow to enter at that time. So yeah, this was what they did. And I mean, I think it's laughable how the Jews actually just fell for it. To me, I think there's nothing more stupid than those Jews that fell for it, that they thought that, oh, the same people that beat them up, the same people that killed them off, the same people that committed genocide against them, suddenly are giving them a land in another country that doesn't belong to them. And they think that they're now friends, and they're going to work together because, oh, they were given a land. You idiots, you were thrown out. You were just literally thrown out of your land. You were thrown out of your homes, and you were told to go elsewhere and occupy. You were the camel that was pushed into the Arab's tent. I mean, how freaking pathetic is that, really? So yeah, these are questions that need to be answered, and these are questions that the world refuses to answer because the world knows that it's wrong. The world knows that they are partners in crime. Even whatever is going on in Pakistan right now, the American government, as I said, American nationals, the American people, the citizens, you need to brace yourself because you have a whole century coming up, a whole century of asking for forgiveness from the whole world, but especially from the Muslim world, and then again, especially from Pakistan. Because this gross interference by the US government, that offensive language used by Donald Liu, when tr- commanding our army and our establishment to remove our prime minister, just because our prime minister was not ready to wage war for the Americans. Yeah, you're going to pay for that. The American government is definitely going to pay for that, but so are the American citizens. They're going to actually pay for the rest of their lives for that, just like how they've been paying Japan for the Hiroshima incident. In case you've forgotten, you're still paying for that, but you're going to pay even more for causing us all this unnecessary chaos and all this unnecessary brutal interference, wreaking havoc within our public, getting our children kidnapped and harassed and tortured, getting our women kidnapped and harassed and tortured, getting our men kidnapped, harassed, and tortured. You are going to pay for that. No amount of apology will make it better. No amount of apology will erase this fact from history that America was responsible for what happened in Pakistan right now. This will go down in history. It will forever go down in history, just like how every other act of America, every other act of interference of America within Pakistan is in our history, right? From the death of Liaquat Ali Khan, all the way to the death of Bhutto, all the way to the toppling of Musharraf, all the way to the removal of Imran Khan. This will all go down. It will all remain in history, seriously. No matter what lies you tell your people, you also know that at one point it will all come out because of your laws. According to your laws, after a certain period of time, all your confidential files have to be made public. And in that, everything is written in black and white. Your interference with Pakistan throughout the history of Pakistan is already in your files, and it is now already in public. It's made public. The public can access it. So, keeping that in mind, I think that right now our people really suck. I think the fact that how our people are just sitting at home and cursing the government instead of going out in the streets and paralyzing the government, I think it's just pathetic that our people still do not understand that there is no way out without active protest, physical protest. As it is, the army is also claiming that it is, going to be part of the processions in Muharram. I mean, for the safety of the people. But the people are already beginning to suspect that the army has designs upon the coming month. Upon they already have designs on what violence to initiate again, and to create another scenario which should make it possible for them. But I mean, the fact that there is now open hostility between the public and the army, the fact that the public is very openly hostile towards the establishment and the army, I think if the army and the establishment still do not understand what's going on and what's happening to them, and that this is just the first of the complete chain of consequences that will occur that will lead to the demise of these two institutions. I really don't know what it is that they think they're doing and what it is that they think they'll overcome, but they will not be able to overcome this hostility ever. In fact, if anything, I think in a way it's good because finally we will be able to put the army and the establishment back in their places where they belong, which is under our feet. So, yeah, I would like you people to just think about it for a second. If your children will be kidnapped, then they will, because it's going to happen. If it's happening to us today, it would happen to you tomorrow. That's a given fact. As long as you're silent, your governments, the minute they're done with other countries, they will turn on their own people. And the American government has turned on its own people numerous times. So it's going to happen. So I would love to see what you people do when the world will be so silent because there will be nobody left to voice their concerns. So I would really love to see what you people do when your children will get kidnapped by your own government and your own law enforcement agencies, and there will be nobody to say or do anything for you. And when your women will be kidnapped, and when your children and women will be harassed and tortured and assaulted by your own people, your own government, your own law enforcement agencies. Yeah, I would love to see what you people will do then. Because I can assure you nobody else is going to do anything for you because you didn't do anything for anybody. And you haven't done anything for anybody. You have not raised your voices against what's happening in Palestine. You have not raised your voices against what's happening in Kashmir. Pakistan was actually raising its voice against what's happening in these two places, and that is why Pakistan is right now undergoing this whole situation. So the rest is really up to God because, as I said, you're all partners in crime. Even our own public are partners in crime as long as they're silent, as long as they're sitting waiting for a freaking miracle which will never come. So this is me signing out for the Hafiz.